Here we go again. Let's make sure we are on the way that we supposed to be. And we're going to get into this. All right. Here we go, everybody. New day, new opportunity, new life, new conversation we're going to have here, everybody. Hope everybody's had a great, what day is today? Thursday? Is today Thursday? Hope everybody's had a great Thursday. Shout out to everybody who watched the replay of yesterday's live. Shout out to everybody who was watching it live when it popped off. If you're on Facebook, I got Facebook on my left. I got Instagram on my right. As y'all are checking in, you can shout yourself out in the comment section. I will shout y'all out real quick. And we're going to get into this. We might need the whole hour today, so I want to make sure we get the whole thing in. I want to make sure we get everything off that I need to say here. So as y'all coming in, go ahead and leave a comment. Shout yourself out in the comment section. We're going to get started in one moment. So, again, name and location in the comment section. We're going to get started in a minute. Shout out to Coffee the Great. So he just watched yesterday's live. Who else we got in here? Mozart Gates. Yes, buckle up. Everybody, we about to get into it. We're going to talk about the NBA's, whatever we want to call this, whatever just happened, their boycott / protest, not playing in the game. We're going to talk about did they get it right. And we're going to talk about this from a few different angles. It's not just going to be about the one game or any of that. It's going to be about just this overall what's been going on as far as how it goes from sports. So we got Matt in New Mexico. We got somebody who said Dre all day, WOYFG. Appreciate that. Oh yeah, WOYFG.com. Y'all can sign up for a free call with me. We are upgrading our systems. We need to talk to the people that we serve so we know how to best serve y'all. Karina checking in from Tampa was good. Tyron checking in from France. All right, we're going to get started right now. I'm going to introduce myself to get into the material. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, former 9-year professional athlete, author, 27 books. I've done 4 TED Talks. I created this whole philosophy, brand, and business that is called Work on Your Game. It's all about taking the mindset tools, mental game tools necessary to get into the top 1% of what you do, whether that's sports, business, or just life in general, and applying those to your sport, your business, and to your everyday life. I got frameworks on top of frameworks for how to do that in different areas. I got a masterclass I put out every day. It is also called, if you couldn't guess, it is called Work on Your Game. You can sample that at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud. Y'all know all the usual suspects. Let me shout out a couple people in the comment section before we get into this. We got Melina tuning in from the south of France. Shout out to the south of France. I heard it's nice out there. Hoop Loudy checking in from Arkansas. Andy from LA is here. So as y'all can see, we are already worldwide. So what we talking about here today, as I told y'all I would talk about, because yesterday, if you missed my live yesterday, I posted it on my feed, and the topic was what Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter both are getting wrong in the current climate of what we got going on. So you can hear my full statement on that in full context. Again, that is on my feed. Today, actually yesterday, let me go back. Yesterday when I was finishing up my live, I saw people leaving comments because I guess it had just happened at that moment. Shout out to Sean, North Carolina, C3 Legacy. They were saying the NBA, the players, there was games yesterday, they didn't play in the games because the Milwaukee Bucks, who play in Wisconsin, the same state where Jacob Blake got shot by the cop on, I believe it was Sunday, and that video didn't look good. They decided to sit out the game, and that led to all the players in the bubble just deciding they didn't want to play in any games yesterday. And I believe it extended also into today. And then they voted today that they are going to continue to play. But they sat out these 2 days of games. It became this big story in the sports world, at least. And I told people I would talk about this. Since I come from a background of basketball, it makes sense that I'm going to talk about something that happened in the basketball world. So let's get into this. Let's get straight into it. Everything I need to say about it will be addressed in my points. How many points I got here? I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. But these points, sometimes they can go long, sometimes they're short. Let's get right into it. So first of all, today I read a few articles on this whole situation because I want to make sure I'm getting people's perspective, people who think what the NBA players did is okay, people who are applauding it, people who are saying this is terrible, this is stupid, what are they doing? I try to read articles from all different people so I can get different perspectives. It's not so that I can agree with them, it's just so I can understand why they're making the case that they're making. So this is a case for why we need good writers out there. So any of you who's a good writer or you think you could be, work on your writing game because we need good writers out here, people who can articulate their points. And people don't have to agree with you, but if you can make a strong case, people can at least respect it. But anyway, and for people like me to read, so when something happens, I can get different perspectives besides just my own. So this guy named Clinton Yates, who writes for The Undefeated, which is a site that is all about promoting minority voices via ESPN. He wrote that the players just needed a respite from what happened. They saw the video that everybody else saw, this 20-second video of this black man getting shot in his back as he walked away from the police officers into his car. And again, I'm not even making an argument as to whether it was right or wrong, but I will say that it looked terrible. On video, that looks bad for the cop. It looks bad for America. It looks bad, especially with what's going on right now. And again, that's not an overall judgment on the whole situation. I think we can all agree that it looks bad. Now, if we get more information, could that change things? Yes, but we don't have that information yet, so this is all we got to go off of. This is pretty much how things work on social media. Y'all all know that. So what this guy Clinton was saying was that the players felt kind of emotional about it. They have painted themselves into this position. They're going to be people who talk about what happens in socially when it comes to race and social justice, etc. They have decided they're going to be in this position. So this happened. They had to do or say something. They did their tweets, was pretty much all they can do, and then they could talk after the games, but they didn't want to play in the games. So do they have a right to do that? Yes. It's a 100% fair game that the players decided that they wanted to sit out the game because that's just how they felt in that moment. I don't think every player felt that way, but it's group majority rule. So if the stronger leaders in the group want to sit out, and that's just what it is. That's how the game goes in any group anywhere in life. So the players do not owe anyone anything in the moment. They didn't owe it to me or you or any basketball fan to play in the game if they didn't feel like playing in the game because they were feeling emotional about what happened. So there's nothing wrong with the players actually sitting out the game. And the players have also positioned themselves, as I just referred to, as the mouthpieces of Black Lives Matter. This group of NBA players is probably one of the most famous, actually the most famous group of people right now in America that is advocating for Black Lives Matter as a group. Now, there are, of course, other people who are famous saying it, but as a group, you got the WNBA and the NBA. They're the ones who are in their season right now, so the NFL would also be a part of this. Major League Baseball, hockey, not so much. Maybe you got soccer, but the biggest sport in America is either football or basketball. Football is not in season yet, so basketball is the biggest mouthpiece for Black Lives Matter, and they saw Black life almost get taken. The guy didn't die, but he got paralyzed at the hands of a cop, and he didn't have a gun, so it goes right along with what people have been saying. Again, we don't know all the information yet. We will find out, but just off the video, it looks bad. They had to do something. This is part of the job. So all of that they've done so far is fair game. Everything they did to this point, what I'm saying, is all fair game. I'm not against it. It's not that I'm even necessarily for it or against it, but if that's what they wanted to do, they have a right to do that. They're citizens. They decide they didn't want to play. They didn't play. Didn't hurt anybody else but them. Now, however, all that being said, as we move on to my second point, the movement that the quote-unquote movement, I got to use air quotes when I say movement, that these players are talking about, because a movement, I'm going to talk about this later, by definition has to actually be going somewhere, and there has to be a plan in place, and I don't think this movement is going anywhere. I don't think there's a plan, but we're going to get to that. But this whole movement that the players are calling a movement, they keep saying, to quote LeBron James, who is pretty much the leader of this whole thing, "We want change." Or LeBron said in his tweet, what did he say? "Fuck this, man, tired of this shit. We demand change." Something like that. Y'all follow LeBron. I don't follow LeBron, but again, as big as his name is, some of his tweets find my timeline. He said, "We demand change." Okay, you demand change. The only actionable thing, you can keep that in mind, that he said we demand change. Keep in mind that people keep saying we want change. As far as I'm not saying y'all, I'm talking about the NBA players. They keep saying, well, we want change, we want social justice, we want to end systemic racism. Nike put out a statement, we support black players in ending systemic racism. What the hell does that even mean? We're going to get to that. So these are the things they keep saying. All right, everyone can agree to that. So LeBron James said we demand change. The only actionable thing that I have seen from LeBron James since in the last 90 days, since all these things have happened, is LeBron has created more than a vote. So he has more than an athlete. So he's branding this whole line. He's going to go more than a vote. So he's mobilizing people to vote. And the NBA has jumped in on this. I believe the NFL jumped in on it. Soccer's in on it. The WNBA is in on it. All these leagues are in on this thing to mobilize people to go vote. They're not telling you who to go vote for, but it's kind of like the way that people said Donald Trump was blowing the dog whistle when he said semi-racist stuff when he was campaigning. This is the more than a vote in all these sports leagues that are majority black, and their BLM hashtags and their social justice and Black Lives Matter t-shirts before the games. We all know that what side they're on, because their ringleader, Mr. LeBron James, did stump speeches for Hillary Clinton in 2016. He was with Obama in 2008, 2012. So LeBron has made clear what side he's on. LeBron is pushing for the Democrats. So when he's telling people to go vote, we all know that his background as a Democrat. It is pushing to vote for the Democratic candidate. That makes it political. So for anyone who thinks, well, they're just talking about race, they're just talking about people dying, as soon as you start talking about vote, and the person who is doing the most talking about voting is a guy who has pushed for Democrats his career with a big megaphone, then it becomes political. And that's fine. If you want to be political, you want to talk about politics, you want to push for the Democratic candidate, that is fine. I'm not mad at that. But I just want to point out that that is what this is. So if anyone wants to argue that, well, no, it's not about politics, well, he made it about politics because he decided to go campaign for these people in the past. So now, once you're in it, you're in it. Once you jump in the pool, you can't get unwet, if you understand what I'm saying, if you understand the metaphor. So LeBron's been pushing people to vote. That's the only actionable thing I've heard from LeBron is go vote. Register to vote. We're going to make people vote more than to vote. And that's all good, if that's what you want to do. There are some people who take voting really seriously. They think that they should vote. Is their legal, is their obligation to vote because black people fought so hard and so long for people to be able to vote. All good. You want black people to vote? All right, push them to vote. That's what LeBron's doing. I don't have a problem with LeBron doing that. But here's the problem. Here's the problem that I do have with LeBron demanding change and being a ringleader and demanding that people vote. I want y'all to connect the dots on everything that I'm saying here. The president of the United States, whoever it is, Bill Clinton, George H. Bush, George W. Bush, Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and whoever's next, whether it's Biden and Kamala or Trump another 4 years, whatever it is, the president of the United States does not kill unarmed black people. No president of the United States has ever, at least no sitting president that I know of, has ever actually pulled the gun and shot anybody. The president don't even have to carry a gun because he got a whole bunch of security. They'll do the shooting for him. He got shooters with him. So no president shoots unarmed black people. So if this whole problem is about unarmed black people being shot by police or being shot by whoever, this is what the players are barking about. So why is, if that's the challenge, why is voting the only actionable thing that we've heard from the majority of players? All I hear is change, forget this, fuck basketball, we want change, we want something different, we need social justice, racial equality, and systemic racism. None of those things actually, there's nothing tangible to any of that stuff. It all sounds great, and we're going to get to that in a minute. The only actionable, tangible thing I've seen is voting. If any of you have seen anything else coming from the players that says, this is what we need to do, all I've heard is vote. Now, I heard that some players are saying, okay, well, what are we going to do? But I haven't heard any answers. All I'm hearing is vote. Now, keep all these things in mind. Why is vote the only actionable thing we see? I mean, listen to this. Athletes, whenever these things are happening, let's say I was having a conversation with LeBron James right now. He wouldn't have a conversation with me because I would challenge some of his statements and some of his beliefs, and I haven't seen him actually be verbally challenged by anybody, and he has the power to control who he talks to and what questions he answers. So I don't think he wants to talk to anybody who's going to critically question him. But let's just imagine that I was having a conversation with Mr. LeBron James, and I said, well, LeBron, why are you pushing people to vote when the problem is black people being killed by, whoever? We know it ain't the president. What does it matter who the president is? When Trayvon Martin got shot and Michael Brown got shot, Barack Obama was the president. Now, nobody was screaming about voting then. So why is it about voting now? It just doesn't add up. Voting is not the solution. I'm not mad if you want people to vote, but voting is not the solution to the problem, because again, when we had a black guy, people were still getting shot. So this is not new if you want to go that route, but it also ain't got a damn thing to do with the president. So here's the thing that I'm saying. Many woke people, some of you who are listening to me right now, and many athletes, many of whom play in the NBA, because that's what we're talking about right now. I guess you can lump in the WNBA as well. They like to say, well, it's the same stuff happening over and over again, right? They say systemic racism. They say 400 years of oppression. You got LA Clippers coach Doc Rivers talking about, well, no, we love this country and the country doesn't love us back. And he said, well, Donald Trump is always preaching fear. I didn't think that was actually accurate. As far as the love part, that's his opinion, his position. But as far as he says, well, Donald Trump's promoting fear, well, I think LeBron James and some of your fellow players, your peers in the NBA, Mr. Rivers, are doing the same thing as I laid out I laid this out yesterday on my live. You got players promoting fear who don't even have to deal with the things that people really got to deal with in the street. So that wasn't accurate what Doc Rivers was saying. But all that being said, 400 years of oppression, systemic racism is the same things happening over and over again. Let's just assume that you believe that. Let's say that that's the way you feel, okay? If you feel that way, let me ask you a question. Who's been in control politically over those 400 years? It's been Democrats. We've had Republicans. It's been pretty much a balance of both. We had Democrat president, Republican president, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican. The only thing I've heard players saying, again, by their ringleader LeBron, is to go vote. But if the same thing's been happening for 400 years, obviously the problem is not the president, because we get different presidents and from different parties all the time. We even had a different race president. Obviously, that's not the problem. So this all logically put together doesn't make any sense. Why is the NBA and their teams and their players stumping for anything that has to do with federal politics, like voting? Who cares if Joe Biden or Donald Trump or who's the other person, Kamala Harris or Mike Pence or Mitt Romney or McCain or Obama or whoever is president, because these things have been happening no matter who the president was. So all that added up doesn't make logical sense. It doesn't add up, which leads to this next point. Here's point number 3 here. There is no plan in place. And this is the biggest problem that the NBA players have. It's not a problem that I have with them. They can do whatever the hell they want. I made it clear that when it comes to politics, I don't put as much stake in it as some other people do. And I'm not sure every player in the NBA does, but they got to go along with what the group wants to do. There's no real plan in place here, what the NBA players are talking about. And I just explained briefly why, or on the surface level why, but I'm going to go deep into this. So the kneeling before the kneeling during the national anthem, okay. The tweeting, we already know about the tweeting. The walkouts and not playing in the games and boycotting and voting and maybe we'll cancel the whole season. And then all the NBA reporters, they got to amplify the story and tell you, oh, the players are talking about canceling the whole season. They're going to just go home and not do anything. They're going to cancel the bubble. It's all going to be over. You got people like Jamal Hill, Sean King, these race-baiting journalists who had, I don't know about Sean King, but Jamal Hill had a promising career in sports journalism going, or at least she was working on it, but she decided she wanted to go woke. And I don't know. I guess it's working for her. I guess wokeness pays. So I guess it does. I don't know. I don't know what she's making, but I can tell she's very popular amongst the woke. And there's a large crowd of wokeness, so if that's going to be your niche, that can work for you. And again, that's what she wants to do. As long as she ain't violating nobody's rights, she can go ahead and do it. And they all amplify all of these messages from the players. The NBA season going to get canceled because of racism and this and this and this. Okay, fine. All of those things look good and they sound good in one particular area. They look good and they sound good within the bubble of you being around people who think and talk like you and agree with everything that you said. I was talking to I mentioned this yesterday, talking to one of my homies, a friend of mine for a long time, my man. And he's on this woke stuff. He's repeating all these woke lines and saying these same things over and over. And he's a friend of mine, so I can talk to him and I will challenge his points. And when he says things and I challenge his points, he doesn't really have anything to say back because he's not very good at formulating an argument, just to be honest. He's still my man. He's not good at formulating an argument. And he'll just go back to saying the same things over and over and over again. And one thing I said to him yesterday, I said, look, the biggest challenge that you have when it comes to this topic is that the only people you listen to and follow are people who say things that you agree with. That's the biggest problem. And this is something that I said yesterday. When Hillary lost in 2016, I remember the day after that election. The election's on a Tuesday, so I went to the gym Wednesday morning, and I remember walking around the gym. I was like, how the hell did he win that election? Because it looked like he wasn't going to win. But it told me that I was living in a bubble. I was only listening to people who were supporters of Hillary, woke, BLM, F Donald Trump, he's racist, this and that. I was only listening to people who thought like that, so all I heard was, there's no way Trump can win. There's no way Trump can win. And then when he won, I'm like, how did he win? That's impossible, right? And then I realized that there's a whole other 50% of the world who thought completely differently, and I was unaware of those people. I needed to change. So then I started listening to other people, and that helped open my mind in many ways. And this is something that I suggest everybody does. And it doesn't have to be about politics. This could be about anything. If you think I don't know, if you like the vegan diet, you should listen to some people who argue that you should eat meat. If you like eating meat, you should argue some people talk about vegetarian. If you like fast food, you should argue some people talk you should only buy organic. If you like to eat out, you should listen to some people who talk about you should grow all your food in the garden. Wherever your stance is, if you're very strong on any stance, you need to open up yourself to listen to and read and watch people who have the complete opposite stance, because there are smart people on that side too, and they may have some valid points that will be useful to you if you would open your mind long enough to listen to what they have to say without prejudgment. And this is something that I don't think many NBA players are capable of. I definitely don't think LeBron James has this ability. I think some of the woke journalists out there know exactly what they're doing, because I think they're smart enough to know exactly how to play to the crowd and rile up an audience the way they need to rile them up. They could do something different, but they don't want to, and it's their prerogative. As long as they're not violating anybody's rights, you can say whatever the hell you want. The great thing about America is we have free speech. You can say what you want. But when you are in a bubble of wokeness, that most woke people, they live in this bubble of wokeness. What that means is the only people they follow, the only people they listen to, the only people they ever hear, the only videos that they watch, the only tweeters that they follow, the only Instagram accounts they see are people who are also saying the same woke shit that they said. And it's not necessarily wrong. I'm not saying they're wrong for doing it. But what I am saying is, if all you hear all your life, every day, are a whole bunch of people, famous people, influential people, big people, small people, males, females, black, white, and every one of them is saying the same thing. Everybody's agreeing on every point. Everybody has the same opinion on everything that comes up. That should be telling you something. That is a warning sign to you that you are living in a bubble. You are only consuming things that you agree with. And the problem is, when you come across a person who disagrees with you, you are going to outright just dismiss them because you're like, all right, they're an idiot. They obviously don't know the facts, because the only facts you know of are the facts that you heard from the 100 people you follow who all have the same opinion as you. This person obviously just doesn't know what they don't know. This person can't be listened to. When they offer you a point that goes against what you believe and they can back it up with logic, you can just dismiss it. Well, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And you just go back to that. Some of you probably know what I mean. You probably had conversations with people like this. Maybe not on this subject, but in life. They have this point, and you break down their point logically, rationally, respectfully tell them why their point is not accurate, and then they don't have anything to say, and then they just shut you out. They just basically dismiss everything that you told them and go right back to believing the thing that they already believe. We call this living in a bubble. And the challenge with and it's ironic that the NBA players are playing in what they call a quote unquote bubble, but I think a lot of these NBA players, and Jason Whitlock, who's a guy who's a sports journalist, he's a very good sports journalist because he knows how to formulate an argument. I'm not saying he's good because I agree with everything he says. I say he's a good sports journalist because he knows how to formulate an argument and back up his points with logical, rational reasoning to why he's saying what he's saying. Doesn't mean you have to agree with it, but you can respect the skill. And this is something that I think a lot of writers are missing these days. But that's a different conversation for a different day. One thing that Jason Whitlock says is that the NBA players are in this bubble where everything that happens to a black person, they can label as racism. Nobody's going to question them. They can attack the president, and nobody's going to question that. They can make all these woke statements no matter what happens. They're going to name drop these deceased people who have died at the hands of police as if they really care about those people. And I don't think they really care that much about those people. I think they know that if they say that, it's going to get retweeted, and they're going to get, their fans are going to support them and say, oh man, this guy's so great. Look at the things he keeps saying about George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. It's not that I don't think that they really care about those people's families. I really don't think they do. I think that it's a good thing to say because you know who you're talking to. You're playing to the crowd. Now, if they really cared about those people, you don't have to announce it on TV. There are things that you could do away from the cameras. But anyway, that's a different conversation for a different day. And that's just a personal opinion of mine. But all that being said, when these players are inside this bubble, nobody's questioning them. I talked about this on Twitter the other day, that these journalists, the journalists who work for the NBA, you had to be admitted into the bubble, right? So all the journalists who are working inside the NBA's bubble, or the ones who get access to the players, have you heard a single NBA journalist question anything about all this wokeness, Black Lives Matter, kneeling, social justice, change? Have you heard one journalist question any of it? Anyone who has access? Not one of them? Nobody. I want y'all to understand something about journalism and news reporting. Now, there's a difference between being an opinion writer, where you give you write your columns and you just say what you want to say. You give your opinion versus being somebody who's actually a journalist. A journalist or reporter is a person who's supposed to get the information, get the info, give it to the public objectively, and let them decide. That doesn't happen anymore in sports journalism. So what happens with the NBA, all the writers who work inside the NBA have access to those players. They know what the game is. They got to amplify these guys' messages and go along with whatever they say. They can't be critical of them. You can't question anything that they say, because if you do, then LeBron will be like, all right, I'm not talking to him anymore. Or Damian Lillard won't have this conversation with this guy. Or you won't be able to write a feature piece on Carmelo or Chris Paul, because they won't give you access because they're mad that you question one of their techniques or one of their strategies or one of their ideas that seemingly doesn't make any sense. The NBA will probably kick you out of the bubble and revoke your media pass. You won't even have access to the players anymore. The challenge is this bubble has been created to where you can't question anything that's happening inside that bubble, and therefore everybody's ideas just get amplified. Everybody has the same ideas. Nothing gets questioned. So people eventually, if every idea you ever have, everyone around you says it's a great idea, and they push it and they amplify it, and you get a round of applause every time you say it, eventually, as a human being, I don't care how objective or smart you think you are, eventually as a human being, you're going to start to believe everything that you say must be right. It must be gospel. It must all be accurate, because everything you say, everyone around you is going with it. They're co-signing everything. And this is a challenge to me, and I talked about this yesterday when I talked about Black Lives Matter and All Lives Matter. When people get to those extremes, they fall into the bubble of only listening to people who sound like them, so they indoctrinate themselves. They start to believe that everything that they have heard must be gospel because they don't hear anything else. And this is what's happening with NBA players. The bubble prevents accountability. And here's the thing about accountability. Accountability means, one part of it, is that you have people around you or systems or processes around you that question you. That when you have an idea or you enact some type of strategy or you take any type of action, someone can question you and make sure that what you're saying makes sense. Make sure that your plan checks out. Make sure that your strategy is sound, and they can question it, they can challenge it, they can hold it up to the light and let you know, like, yo, this is cool, but this part right here isn't right. This over here doesn't sound right. What you just said right there, that ain't okay. That's what accountability sounds like. There is no accountability for the wokeness going on in the NBA's bubble, which makes the NBA, their players, their teams, we don't know what the owners are thinking. We don't hear from them. And the players, the teams, and the journalists, and the influencers or media people who report on them and get inside access to them, they're all inside of this bubble. And some of them know that they're in the bubble and that they can't say anything that would get them put out because it will hurt their business. It will hurt their professional prospects. And some of them actually believe it. I think a lot of them actually believe it. I think there's a few of them who know that they can't get out, they can't say anything because they're stuck there. When there is accountability in a group, everybody's ideas get questioned. Does that happen with NBA players? It doesn't seem like it. And let me tell you why I'm saying it doesn't seem like it. It's not because I disagree with everything that they say or that I think they're wrong for expressing their opinion. Everyone is free to express an opinion. That's why America is such a great country. Everybody can have their opinion. I'm not saying that they're in a bubble because I disagree with them. I'm saying they're in a bubble because we haven't heard one word from anyone who doesn't agree with every single thing that they're saying, which seems to me just statistically damn near impossible. It's damn near impossible that there's not a single journalist whose very job is to get to the bottom of things and ask the critical questions and get the real information, not just repeat what everybody is saying. Not one journalist can question anything that's happening in there because they know they can't. Not one player is saying anything to go against the grain because they know they can't. And that's the challenge that I have with the whole NBA bubble right now as far as their thought bubble. I'm not talking about the playing bubble. I'm talking about the thinking bubble. Moving on to point number 4. As for the boycott of the games, players sat out games on Wednesday, which was yesterday, and players sitting out the boycott, or I guess boycotting games today, and they voted that they're going to keep playing who knows when. So they did the boycott to raise awareness. I think it was Chris Webber, who's a former NBA player. He's an analyst for TNT. He said, well, the players are great. He gave his little speech. Kenny Smith gave a little speech. Oh, he walked off the set. I get it. I mean, we'll talk about that in a minute. They said, oh, we did this to raise awareness. The players did this to get attention. Chris Webber said this. Well, the whole point was to get awareness. Now they got awareness. They got attention. Everybody is watching them. No, Colin Kaepernick, 2016. What did he say? I'm trying to raise awareness. I'm trying to start a conversation. I want to get attention to this issue. Okay, cool. If that's how you feel, that's how the fuck you feel. But let me offer you something now that we're in 2020. Awareness and attention are cheap. They are cheap commodities that are easy to get and easy to lose. Everybody who's watching me right now, you're either on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram. Is it cheap to get attention? I mean, Instagram. Let's talk about Instagram. How cheap is it to get attention? How easy is it to get attention? You know what kind of material you would need to post and the type of things you would need to say if you wanted to get attention real quick and real easy. And it would leave as quick as it came. If you keep doing it, you can get it right back. Everybody knows that attention and awareness are cheap. Just browse your IG feed. Colin Kaepernick took a knee in 2016. He wanted to raise awareness and start a conversation about bodies in the streets, systemic oppression, racism. Cool. That was his prerogative. He had every right to do that. He had a First Amendment right to peacefully protest. That's exactly what he did. Nothing wrong with that. Now, here we are in 2020. Now, if my math is right, that's 4 years. 4 years later, our athletic leaders, LeBron James, who has basically been appointed the leader amongst the woke athletes, nobody came up with a better strategy. It's been 4 years. Colin Kaepernick was kneeling in 2016. 4 years later, players still kneeling. So nobody came up with anything better in 4 years. If the whole thing, because remember, Colin Kaepernick took a knee, they said why? He said systemic oppression, bodies in the street, racism, 400 years. He said all these things. All the talking points the players are saying now, he said back then. And the whole thing is, we're going to kneel and we're going to post hashtags over the police shootings and the systemic oppression, all those things. 4 years later, you still using the same tactic that guy was using in 2016. So is nobody amongst this whole bubble smart enough to come up with a better strategy? That's my question. If I was a reporter with the NBA, this is the question I would ask during the press conference. LeBron, 4 years ago, Colin Kaepernick was kneeling because he wanted to draw attention and start a conversation and raise awareness over black people being shot by cops, unarmed black people being shot by cops. It's been 4 years, LeBron. You were in the league then. You're still in the league now. It's been 4 years. Why has nobody come up with a better strategy and y'all have 4 years to figure it out? That's the question that I would ask, and I would be interested to hear his answer. My theory is he doesn't have an answer, because if he had one, they would be doing something other than what they're doing right now. That's my theory. If any of you thinks that they have an answer, please tell me where I can find one of them articulating what that answer is. So, as some say, it's the same stuff happening, right? Black people getting shot by cops, cops getting off, unarmed black people, systemic oppression, racism, 400 years, slavery, all these things. 4 years later, the same things are still occurring, but 4 years later, you're still responding the same way. What's the definition of insanity, ladies and gentlemen? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. These athletes who are supposedly leaders and they have a quote-unquote platform and they want to raise awareness and want to use their voice and they didn't want to play in a bubble because they want to be out in the world doing what exactly? I have no idea. Like, they couldn't come up with a better strategy. They have 4 years. You have 4 years to come up with a strategy. You ain't come up with nothing. You ain't come up with nothing better than taking a knee during the national anthem. Cap already did that. That's already done. And in 2016, when Cap took that knee, how many NBA players were in the league then, are still in the league now? None of them had the heart to take the knee when the heat was on, but now they want to take a knee because they got the group dynamics and they know there's nothing to lose. Different conversation for a different day. But it took them 4 years. Nobody could come up with anything. Y'all tell me. And if somebody posts something in the comment, I will address it in the end. Point number 5. Ask for these actual slogans. These slogans that people are throwing around. Change. We want change. LeBron James said this. Fuck this. Tired of this shit. We demand change. What the hell does that even mean? Can somebody ask LeBron? Anybody who's watching this has a line on LeBron James. Ask him, what does this mean? You keep saying we demand change. Okay, what change? What do you want? What is the change? Lay out your demands. And let's get to work on making it happen. Y'all got a platform, right? Y'all are famous. Y'all are known. As far as we know, they are highly compensated. Do something. What's the plan? You want change? Okay, tell us what we need to change. The only change LeBron has been pushing is voting. For who? Hillary Clinton? Joe Biden? Obama? Donald Trump? It was happening under all of them. So who are we voting for? And why? What is that going to do? There's no plan for this. There's no strategy in place. And this is a huge problem with this whole thing. So the slogans change, social justice, systemic racism, based on how these things are being categorized. The way that these things are being categorized is this. Because last night there was a situation where there's a white kid, 17 years old. I don't have all the details. 17-year-old white kid, right? He had this assault rifle or whatever, that big gun he's carrying around. He shot like 3 people. 2 of them died. And the cops arrested him. They didn't shoot him. They didn't kill him. They didn't even beat him up. They just peacefully calmly arrested this guy, and people are holding this up as an example. They say, okay, well, here's a black guy. Let's say he scuffled with the cops a little bit, and then he walked to his car. They shot him 7 times in the back. He didn't even have a gun. This white kid has a gun, shot 3 people, and they didn't even shoot him. They just took him peacefully to jail. And people are saying, well, if you look at this and you look at this, there is no way you can say that this is equal. There's no way you can say the black guy could have shot 3 people, he'd be alive today, and the white guy could have walked to his car, he would have got shot 7 times in the back. People are saying compare the two, and this looks very unfair. This looks very unbalanced. This is racism in America. Black lives matter. I've seen a whole lot of people saying this today since that story came out, and you got the juxtaposition of what happened to the white kid and what happened to the black man. Okay, I'm not arguing those points. Here's what I am saying. If your reasoning for bringing up change, social justice, systemic racism, and Black Lives Matter is because you can find an example of a white person being treated in a way that is much more civil and maybe much less crass or much less caustic as a black person being treated in a similar suspect situation. They are a suspect of a crime and the cops are dealing with them, and a white person gets treated way more casually than a black person gets treated harshly. If this is your reasoning for bringing that up, here's the problem with that, is that you will always be able to find an example. All right, this will never end. You'll always be able to find an example. America has 300 million people. Everybody has a smartphone. So if everybody in the world is walking around with a smartphone and everybody's on point looking for an example of a white person not being killed, and then an example of a black person being attacked or brutalized or killed by a police officer, and then you want to compare that one to this one and handpick them to show, hey, here's another example of racism in America, you'll have a full-time job forever. You will never be relieved of your duties. You'll be doing that forever. Okay? This will never change if that is the measure. Now, I'm not saying that that's okay. Is that the way it is? I'm not quite sure, because again, we are picking and choosing things that are happening. Just yesterday, when that same white kid got arrested for shooting 3 people, right? And they didn't kill him, they didn't beat him up, he didn't get brutalized. Listen, there were a whole bunch of black people in America who got talked to by cops, stopped by cops, got tickets written by cops, got arrested by cops, got patted down by cops, got put in jail by cops, didn't get beat up, didn't get brutalized, didn't get shot, didn't get murdered, but there's no news about that. So if you want to pick and choose what happened to this one white person, what happened to this one black person, well, first of all, that's not really the smart way to look at it. But when you're dealing with people who are in a bubble, anything that supports the beliefs in the bubble, all they're going to do is amplify. It's like the Salem witch trials. Any of you know about the Salem witch trials? If a woman got accused of being a witch, they automatically they burned her at the stake. It was over. As long as you got accused, didn't even have to be any proof, didn't have to be anything real. All they had to do was accuse you, point to she's a witch. They burned her. It was over. This whole systemic racism oppression thing has become the Salem witch trials. If you point out anything that happened to a black person that looks like they're being vilified, attacked, held accountable, it's racism, especially if a white person is the one doing the accounting. And if it's a white person and they do something that could be looked at as wrong, but for whatever reason they're not treated harshly and destroyed and murdered and stomped out, then, oh, well, see, they didn't do it to the white guy, then that must mean it's systemic oppression. It must mean this is the racism of America. That is not a fair way to look at a situation. Now, I understand when something first happens that people are emotional. I'll give you a minute to be emotional about it and feel how the hell you feel about it. But eventually you got to step out of the emotion and step into some reasonable, logical thinking. The problem is it's been 90 days and people are still in the emotional thinking. And they say, well, it keeps happening. Well, I mean, what your response keeps happening too. So again, what's the definition of insanity? Now let's move on to the last point. Point number 6. Let's talk tactics versus strategies. Strategies, for those of you who don't know what a strategy is, everybody's heard the phrase, but let me explain what a strategy is. A strategy has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Okay, strategy is we start here and we end here. We do this first, then we do this, then this, then this, and then it's over once we achieve this outcome. That is a strategy. A tactic is just something that you do. It's an isolated action that you take. It can be part of a strategy. A tactic can be part of a strategy, or it could just be a one thing that you did that didn't have any strategy attached whatsoever. Here's the problem with the NBA's players and what they're doing. They are executing tactics, and these tactics draw a lot of attention. They got me talking about it here on this live. Y'all are interested in hearing about this. Y'all leaving comments about this. The tactics are drawing attention. Tactics can get you popular on Twitter. They can get you hot on Instagram. They get you a lot of views on YouTube. But tactics do not create outcomes. That is the problem with a tactic, especially when you use the same tactic over and over and over again. Eventually it becomes tired and it doesn't produce a result. This is the problem with the tactics the NBA players are using. Change is not a strategy. Saying LeBron James said, we want change. We demand change. He has a huge megaphone. He can say whatever he wants and influence thousands of people at once. Because there are many people who follow him won't be influenced by what he said. They just want to see what he says. But there's a bunch of people who are influenced by what he says. When he says it, they take it as something serious. He can influence as many people as he wants. He could actually lay out what the strategy is and everybody would know about it. Where's that strategy at? Where's it at? The challenge is there is not a strategy. This is the challenge of the whole situation. Change is not a strategy, ladies and gentlemen. Saying I want change is not a strategy. What's the change? Kneeling during the national anthem is not a strategy. All right. So when is it okay to stop kneeling if it's all about unarmed blacks being shot by police? That's my question. So if you're kneeling because unarmed blacks have been shot by police, when do you stop? Because no matter, let's say Joe Biden wins the election, he dies and Kamala becomes the president. All right, now we got a black woman president. And then another black person gets shot by police. Now what? Is it okay now? We got a black woman president. Do you kneel again? What do you do? When do you stop kneeling if you're only kneeling to bring a voice and awareness to these problems that you think America has that you cannot enunciate, you can't really lay out, and you don't have a strategy for ending them? You're going to be on your knees for the rest of your life. That's a good metaphor right there. When is it okay to stop kneeling? Because there will always be something happening somewhere that a black person, if they want to look at it a certain way, can see that as racist, as oppression, as unfair, as unbalanced. There will always be something to complain about if you want to look for it. If you look hard enough, you'll find anything. Now, I'm not saying that people are making these things up. But what I am saying is if your strategy is I'm going to do this until this happens, but there's no way to make that happen, it's like impossible for that to happen, when are you ever going to stop? You signing yourself up for a job that you can't get out of. So that's the challenge with tactics. They're very easy to start doing, but they're very hard to stop doing. And this is something that I said about Kaepernick when he first started kneeling. I said he has a right to kneel. The problem is he doesn't have a strategy, so when is he going to stop kneeling? He can't stop. He has to kneel forever. And then once people started following him and people started questioning him and being critical of him, he didn't know what to say, so he went silent. He hasn't spoken since. Now, I heard he's got a TV show or a documentary or something coming on ESPN. ESPN's on the woke train as well. So everybody who works for ESPN, another example. Even the white people, if you're going to get on the air and you work for ESPN, you know what you better say and what you better not say if you want to have a job tomorrow. Everybody knows that. If you want to have followers tomorrow, if you don't want to get outed by the social media mob and murdered by the social media mob, you know what you can say and what you can't say. So these bubbles, ESPN's part of the bubble, CNN, the New York Times, the NBA, they're all part of the bubble, and all of their fans and followers are part of the bubble. So you can have a whole life inside of this simulated environment of the bubble. It's like The Sims. It's like that digital video game. There will always be something happening. As long as police are dealing with suspects, and as long as there are suspects who will in any way, shape, or form offer resistance to a cop, there will be people getting beat up, people getting fucked up, people getting shot. That will happen. I don't care black or white. That will happen. It will continue to happen as long as there are human beings, as long as there are cops, and as long as there are suspects to crimes, those things will occur. So when will you get up off of your knees if that is your reasoning for doing it, if that's your strategy? What's the goal here? There are no answers to that question. And this is a problem because when you recruit people to join you, people want to know where they're going. All right, any of you ever gone on a long road trip with your friends? I'm talking maybe before we had smartphones and people could pull up Google Maps. They're going to ask you, all right, how long is this trip? All right, when we getting there? All right, how far are we away? All right, can you stop at the gas station? Can we change the music? I need something to eat. Why? Because they're in the passenger seat. You're the one in charge. They want to know where they're going. You got to show people where they're going if you ask them to get on the train with you. Now, there are a lot of people who are following what these guys are doing and co-signing it, and some player makes some woke statement that sounds intelligent, and people are like, yeah, man, he's so great, he's so smart, he's the best. But they don't even know where they're going. And this is why on social media, these people are called literally followers. They don't know where they're going. They don't know what the strategy is. There's no strategy in place. They're just blindly following this individual. And the individual they're following, they don't even know where they're going. But they just keep doing the thing that they know gets attention. Again, attention is cheap. It is easy to get. is not really is it as worth it as you think it is? I don't know. Any of you who has ever drawn a whole lot of attention real quick, maybe you can answer that. But this is my whole argument as far as what the NBA is doing, as far as their hashtagging, their kneeling, social justice, the T-shirts, all the other stuff that's going on. Now, all that being said, who has a question? Go ahead and post it in the comments. I will answer all questions right now in the comments. We got like 10, 12 minutes to answer all questions. While I wait for people to put their questions in, I know it's a lot. We're going to get to all of them. I'm going to scroll through and get through them quick. So make sure your question is short to the point. This right here is called The Mirror of Motivation. I forgot to mention this yesterday. Self-Guide to Self-Discipline. This is the book you should start with. If you've never read any of my 27 books, read this one first. This book is about who you are being as a person. Everybody has goals, things you want to have. Everybody knows you got to work to get something. You can't get something for nothing. That's what you need to do. Most people never ask themselves the third critical question. First question is, what do I want? Second one, what I need to do. The first one, who do I need to be? What type of person do I need to become? How do I need to think in order to get to my goals in life? This book will show you how to do it by looking in the mirror. That's why it's called The Mirror of Motivation. This is not a hype up book. This is not me hyping you up. This is me giving you a framework for you to figure out and know and apply who you need to be as a person so that you can do what you need to do to have the results you want to have. You can get this book for free. Yes, free 99. Go to mirrorofmotivation.com. The link is down there in the pinned comment. And just go to the title of the book, take out the mirrorofmotivation.com. The book's free. All you do is cover the shipping. Mirrorofmotivation.com. Now I'm going to take questions. Let's see. I'm just trying to get to the first question that we got here. Deshaun, North Carolina. I think I shouted that out. Said Jacob Blake's death fueled the flames. Of course it did. And something else is going to happen, and people are going to get excited about that too. Clarina said they got the attention of important people across the country and I support it. Important people like who? Who are the people you talking about? She said they definitely need a plan though in order to get real change. Yeah, they need a plan. You're right about that. Coffee said, do I think if Trump gets reelected, he'll be assassinated? No, I don't think he'll get assassinated because you shoot the president, you're getting Swiss cheesed up by the Secret Service. So I don't think anybody's on a suicide mission. Coffee said, I haven't seen any free Hong Kong messages on the back of jerseys. Well, yeah, that's the bread. That's the money. They can't mess up the money. Karina said, voting is not the only solution, so I see your point here. I don't think voting is a solution, period. It's not a solution at all. Not to this. The police aren't the ones shooting people. I mean, not police. The politicians are not the ones shooting people. It's not them that's causing a cop to do what the cop does. Cops are individual people. Coffee says, Dre needs to become an NBA reporter to challenge LeBron. No, because they would tell me. They take me into a dark room, be smoking cigarettes, and they tell me, listen, you know what to say and what not to say, right? And that'd be it. LeBron is enslaving his own mind, including others. Well, I wouldn't go that far. I think he believes the things that he's saying. I don't think he's purposely misleading people. I think he believes it. Paez says, Dre, I'm upset about the NBA boycotting games. I found out Jacob Blake was not innocent. Wish people would judge by the morals and not the race. LeBron is mindless. Well, as I said at the top, LeBron doesn't owe you anything to play in the games. As far as Jacob Blake, he did have a rap sheet, but that has nothing to do with the isolated incident of him being shot. So we got to separate his background from the actual situation that we know about. Now, we didn't know about the background. It had nothing to do with what happened between him and that cop. So the cop shooting him in the back had nothing to do with his rap sheet. I don't care if he was on trial for murder and that happened. It has nothing to do with the cop's actions. So the cop has the answer for his actions in the moment. It has nothing to do with that man's rap sheet or his background. So we can't go that route. That's something that I've heard some all lives matter people say, but that is not a fair thing to say. It is not rational. It's not logical. Vision of wealth was good. Sports Lover says, what do I think about fans who had to drive hours to the real Salt Lake game just for it to get postponed? I say it's tough luck. Sometimes that happens in life. You invest in something and it doesn't work out. It's not like the players did it to despise the fans. They didn't do it to spite the fans. They did it because that's what they felt like they needed to do in the moment. It wasn't about making the fans mad. That's just the way that things happen sometimes in life. Coffee said, is it crazy how all this violence traces back all the way to George Floyd's death this year? Well, it ain't all the way. It's only been 90 days. That's what I was saying. It felt like it's been forever, but it's only been 90 days. Coffee said, we need more Dre Baldwins in the world. There's only one of me. Billy said, I love listening to Dre because he's an incredible thinker. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that compliment. Safe Boy says, Why don't you wait till I get out of school? I love these talks. You in school right now. You never left school. School's still going on. Coffee said, will LeBron be canceled if he spoke the truth? No. He has enough influence that people would actually start listening to him if he spoke. It's not even the truth. Is that if he just had a little bit more nuance and thought a little bit more strategically in the way that he talks. It's not that he's avoiding the truth, because the truth is relative with some people. They only see what they know. You only know what you know. If you're in a bubble, the truth is exactly what you already believe. Paez said, I took a sports broadcasting journalism class, and I was told people can receive backlash if they speak their mind. It's crazy. Even hospital workers who question the COVID hysteria can be fired. That's absolute fact. That's the challenge that's going on in the world right now. That in certain bubbles, there's certain things that you just cannot say with you risking your job to say certain things. So that's the bubble that a lot of people live in right now. It's not just basketball. We just happen to be talking about basketball, but there's in a lot of places we have these bubbles. Billy said, did I see when Charles Barkley said it goes both ways and Shaq said no it don't? Yeah, I did say that. So Shaq, I did see that rather, but Shaq is very woke. Shaq is on the woke side of things. He's on the going along with what all the players say. And I'll tell you something that you can notice really easily when you look at the journalists and the people talking. The journalists and the analysts like Shaq and journalists like Jamal Hill, the Jamal Hills of the world and people like that, the ones who have personal relationships with the players and or there's some vested interest for them to be cool with the players or to have the players to look at them as a cool guy or a cool girl, they all mimic the things that the players say. And the people who don't need the players to like them, the Charles Barkleys of the world, the Jason Whitlocks of the world, and I guess maybe even myself, even though I'm not a journalist, they say things that could possibly challenge the players. Not that they're going against the players. They're just saying, look, I get what you're saying here, but how about this to this and this? It's not that they're completely going against them and contradicting them. Just saying, how about some other ways of looking at this situation? The only people who say that are people who don't need to be cool with the players, don't need to be their friends, don't need them to follow them, don't need them to do their jobs. The people who need the players, they need the players to be cool with them. They can't say anything critical of the players. And that doesn't mean that they're lying or fronting. It just means you got to know what everybody's angle and agenda is. So when I know that a person that's talking can't afford to say anything critical of the players, then it's harder for me to listen to what they're saying because I know they can't say anything else even if they did believe it. So that's my whole challenge with the woke journalism is that even if you did believe something critical of the players, you couldn't say it even if you wanted to. So I'm not sure I can believe anything you're saying. Coach Kev, what's going on? Coffee said, Montrezl Harrell. Yeah, I heard about the Montrezl thing. Do I think there is double standards when it comes to black people disrespecting whites? Right now, there's a double standard, of course, because if Luka had called Montrezl Harrell a bitch-ass nigga, what would have happened to Luka Doncic? They would have boycotted games that day. There would have been no games. The NBA would have canceled all the games. They would have had a day of mourning. Luka would have got kicked out the NBA if he had said that to Montrezl. But since Montrezl said it to him, it got swept under the rug. The NBA didn't even make a statement, and it got pushed away. Now, those kind of statements, I played basketball at every level. So we talk like that on the court all the time. Montrezl is having to get caught on camera. However, in this particular situation, in this climate, if the whole thing is equality, these cats is wearing T-shirts that say equality, then that means everybody got to be equal. And that means everybody. It doesn't mean, oh, white people, y'all need to do stuff for us. It also means black people got to be held accountable the same way. Had Luka used the wrong word on Montrezl, the whole world would have imploded. But when Montrezl used the wrong words on him, it got ignored and nobody talked about it. And is that a double standard? Of course it's a double standard. Is it a terrible thing? No. But if we want to talk about it, then we got to point that out. And I ain't mad about it, but what you pointed out is absolutely accurate. Billy said, I think the boycott backfired since they found a guy reaching for a knife. This should be a lesson to get all facts straight. So is that more information that came out? And this is what I was saying yesterday. I don't have all the information. I haven't read anything about it today. So they said he was reaching for a knife. So that kind of gives the cop a little bit more reasonable doubt as to reasonable, what's the word I'm looking for? Justification for the actions that he took. But we'll see how this plays out. I got to get more information before I make more comments on that. DW says, easy to get attention, especially those who threaten suicide for money. Well, I don't know about all that. Billy said, you would be kicked out, you'd be banned. Yeah, of course they wouldn't even let me in. All they would do is pull up my social media, they look at this, and they'd be like, nah, Dre can't come in. Billy said, they're sheeps. We got like 5 minutes. What will my strategy for change be? Well, first of all, you haven't seen any posts from me saying that we need change. I just said yesterday in yesterday's live, I made it very clear that change does not begin with what other people need to do. Change begins with what you as an individual person needs to do. So what I aim to do when I do these lives, when I make my posts, when I write my articles, when I do my masterclass, when I put videos on YouTube, anything that I put out, my aim is to help inspire other people to think a little bit differently, maybe think a little bit deeper, open your mind a little bit and see things differently from how you've been indoctrinated to see things. That's how change begins, that people opening their mind to understand that the way that you see things is not the only way to see things. There are other ways to see things, but you have to get out of your own mental bubble in order to do that. And a lot of people live in mental bubbles. And social media just makes it easier for people to live in bubbles where you don't have to listen to anything other than what you want to. Coffee said kid's name was Kyle. He was defending himself and businesses being looted. Rioters charged at him, so he shot them. Okay, so now that makes it a completely different situation, right, from what people are pointing out. Now, I don't know what you just said to be fact, but let's just assume that that's true. And if that's the situation, then that changes the whole context of the whole thing. But nobody's bringing that up. See, that's the point that I'm making. Nobody said, well, this is why he had the gun and this is what he was doing with it. People say, well, as a white guy, he shot people. The cops just arrested him politely. But then when there's a black guy, that he gets killed and he didn't even have a gun. So this is what I mean. People leave out and put in certain context based on the narrative that they're trying to paint and the bubble that they're trying to serve. And this is a challenge just for all of, especially in America. I can't speak for other countries, but in America, definitely. Harry says racism ain't going away overnight. It's going to get progressively better over generations. It will get better over generations. A lot of people got to die out, but the problem is the young people. All right, these NBA players are young. All right, it's not like they 80 years old talking racist stuff. These are 20-year-old people talking this racism thing. So it's going to take a while. I think all of us might be long gone before this happens. Billy said, except on election year. LOL, yeah, you're right. Paez said, I saw the witch trials on the Paul Joseph Watson video the Hodge twins were talking about. Yeah, the witch trials. Obviously, I didn't know Dre had a cat. What are you talking about? I don't have any pets. I don't know what that means. Paez said, they send a misleading message. What they should do is send a message to obey cops' commands, even if a person disagrees. Black-on-black violence is an untalked issue. Well, if you say that to a woke person, they're going to tell you you're changing the subject. But I get what you're saying. Tyron said, what would be your strategy if I had a platform like LeBron? Well, the thing is, again, I'm not out here saying that we need change. I would say, first of all, everybody got to look at themselves. And I would tell players, we need to listen to some people who disagree with us, and let's see what they got to say, and let's really consider their points critically and consider them logically and see if they have some points other than the points that we've been making over and over again, because obviously ours ain't doing anything. That's what I would do. I don't have an NBA team, Antonio. Gregory says, I'm ready for a change in the world. Like what? Be specific. What kind of change? $1 said Jay Williams called Trez out. Yes, he did. I did see that. The Life of Trice says, yeah, reasonable suspicion. Exactly. He said that's why he was apologizing. Yeah, he apologized. But again, if Luka had said that, would it have been over that fast? Of course not. Sports said, what if a player do if he get juked and the players make fun of you? Should you play dirty to shut them up? You way off the topic. Mozart says racism is not, well, yeah, I did a whole master class on that, racism not being illegal. All right, everybody, our time is just about up. We're about to hit the hour mark. I will post this live on my feed here as well. This will go on YouTube probably in maybe around Thanksgiving. We got a lot of videos to put out. This will be on my Facebook page immediately. So y'all can see it on my Facebook.com/work on your game. Go to mirrorofmotivation.com. Get this book free. Just tell me where to ship it. If you want this book, Work on Your Game, as soon as you get this one, we're going to make you an offer for this one and another one together in a bundle on the very next page. But claim your free copy of this book first. This is where you start. If you never bought anything from me, start with this right here, mirrormotivation.com. Tomorrow we will do another live. Who knows what we're going to talk about? We'll see. Work on your game. Everybody have a great day. Dre all day.